Hey, welcome to my channel. Welcome to the second episode of my marble nails series. So this time we're going to use dip powders, and we can use this little French manicure tray, or you can use a cupcake liner, or you can just be creative. I have both a big cupcake liner and a small one. I think I'm going to use the small one today. And let's put everything away and move on. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my clear powder, and I'm going to put probably about 3 scoops into a cupcake liner, and that's going to be my base that I work off of. I'm going to open that up a little bit, give myself a little bit more room to work, and then I'm going to pick out my colors. I've chosen Sparkle & Co.'s Nautical Chic, iGel Beauty's Dark Crimson, and Sparkle & Co.'s Exploring a Ton, which is a very pale gray. And then I have Kiara Sky's Pure White. You want to pick some colors that have a variety of shades. I might use Candy Apple. I use that on my index finger. I'll probably also use this Runway color from Virgo and Gem. I used Emily for my base for this finger. It's a sheer white. I like to either have a dark color, and the next video is gonna have this dark crimson as the base. Sometimes I like to have a dark color, sometimes I like to have a light color for a base, which is why I have the clear down below so that I can have that flexibility. Okay, so here I'm taking some of the dark crimson and I'm just putting a tiny bit, kind of in a line, on top of my clear base. And I'm going to do that for pretty much all of my colors. I'm going to add some of the Exploring a Ton, the gray color, to give it a little bit of contrast. I'm kind of going back and forth between dark colors and light colors. Like I said, we like to have that contrast, and I'm trying to be very gentle-handed with just a little bit. I don't really want huge piles of color that are all congregating together, because I do want them to be able to kind of mix together just a little bit. And then I've picked this Nautical Chic. It's a really pretty, it looks pink in this color, but it's really a pretty red. It's it came in the sub bag in June of 2020, I believe. It was right before 4th of July, so it's a really good 4th of July type American red color. And then I'm adding that white right next to that, and I'm just putting these all up against each other in a line. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, oh yes, we want to make sure we have that sparkle. I always include a little bit of sparkle, and with this one, rather than making a line of sparkle, which you totally can do, that's the great thing about these marble nails, I'm just kind of tapping it over, just sort of sprinkling it a little bit, so I get a little bit of this beautiful hollow glitter sort of all over it. But you can do it in a line. You can do whatever it is you want. That's what's so great about marble nails, is you can pick your own colors. You could do red and green for Christmas. You can do really anything. The sky's the limit. So if you wanted to look on Google and pick color choices based on true agate or jade stone or whatever, you just study the pictures and kind of figure out your coloring from there. I'm kind of shaking it up a little bit because I want those colors to blend a little too. And I'm using my water marble tool to kind of zigzag back and forth. You could do little dots of color rather than the lines of color. You could do, and I've done that. I've done that plenty of times. It just depends on what kind of a look you're going for. And it helps to kind of play around a little bit, maybe on a practice tip, just to give yourself an idea of what it's possibly going to look like when it actually hits your nail. It's never going to be the same thing twice. But that's also the nature of marble. You don't get the same thing twice. Okay, so I'm putting in my base coat right now over Emily. And like I said, Emily is a real milky, kind of a sheer white. I wanted to have that pale background without being too bright. I wanted my white, the powder that I put in my cupcake liner to fit nicely, to kind of pop off that nail too. So I didn't want it to be white on white. Okay, so now I'm very gently laying my nail on top of that, and I'm kind of picking it up and putting it down and picking it up and putting it down a little, just to give it a little bit more dimension as well. And then I'm going to cure it for 30 seconds. Okay, so now that that's cured, I'm going to take a look at it and I'm going to see if I want to make any changes, put a little bit more color places. I can totally leave it there if I want to and then just go on with the last steps. But I wanted to have a little bit more white in there and maybe a little more glitter, and so I decided to go ahead and do a second layer. I do usually do a second layer because I like the dimension that it adds, and the fact that you can just kind of play around with it just a little bit more. I sometimes don't know when to stop, and it can get muddied if you're not careful. But like I said, I wanted a little bit more of the lighter colors to be included, and to pop off a little bit. But here I'm adding some more, and I'm going a little crazy. I'm just adding a little bit more red and I went a little bit more on the gray and on the white, and just a little bit more on that red. I felt like the lighter red kind of was taking over a little bit, and you couldn't see the gray very much, and you couldn't see the white very much, and I don't know. I'm just kind of playing around and just seeing what feels right. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my water marble tool and zigzag it around a little bit more and go in with my base coat. And then I will lay my finger on top again, just like I did with that first coat. And we'll see what happens. Oh, yes, reds. You have to be careful with reds, especially in those dark colors, because they can stain your brush. So what I was doing there is I was wiping my brush off on my paper towel, and then I was actually kind of wiping it between two layers of paper towel. I just want to make sure I get all that color off my brush before I put it back in my bottle. So I like the way that looks, so I'm going to go ahead and cure for another 30 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to take my nail brush and brush that off. I did it after the last coat too. I just didn't show it on camera. And I like that a lot better than the first layer alone. I thought that one had a lot more dimension. So my next step is I want to encapsulate in clear, and being that I'm doing this the gel method, I don't use clear over my colors because it can look cloudy. So I use builder gel. I just put a nice thin coat of builder gel over my nail and just try and get it over the entire nail. And it doesn't need to be thick because really there's very little buffing and filing that needs to be done with the gel method. So I put a thin coat, and then I will hold my nail upside down for about 10 to 15 seconds or so, just to let gravity pull it out just a little bit and give it some leveling all on its own. That will even lessen the amount of filing and buffing that I will need to do. And for builder gel, I cure that for a full 60 seconds. So after I cured, I took a lint-free wipe with some alcohol and I wiped the inhibition layer off of my nail because I did not want to gunk up my files. And then I take my board file and I just very quickly run across the edges and sharpen up my shape. And then I always use a glass file for around my cuticles. I feel like it gives a nice sharp line and nice transition right there, but it doesn't chew up my cuticles. It's so nice. And then I take the 100 grit side of my flexi file and I go over my nail and I buff it up. So I like to make sure that the transition between my skin and my apex is nice and smooth. I like that to not have any big bumps or sharp edges. I like it to just beautifully transition from my skin up to my apex. And then I take the 180 grit side and I smooth it out even more. I like to have that nice smooth surface, but if you're going to go straight into your top coat, you need to have a little bit of a rougher surface, so I would skip the 180 grit side. So then I wipe off all of the dust and debris and I go in with my base coat and I just apply that nice and thin. And I do that because I don't want my top coat to peel on me. And I am guaranteed that my top coat won't peel if I use a base coat. If you're not going to use the base coat, then you just need to make sure you have a little bit of a roughed up surface before you go in with your top coat. And then after I've cured that for 30 seconds, I will go in with a glossy top coat. You can use a matte top coat if you like. I highly suggest using a glossy top coat first because matte top coats will show every nook and cranny and blemish and imperfection. And if you use a glossy top coat and then hold your nail upside down for 10 to 15 seconds to help with leveling out before you cure, then you'll have a nice smooth surface for that matte top coat. I did stick with a glossy top coat with this one, and there it is. I hope you liked this video. Give it a like, give me a subscribe, and stay tuned for the next one. I'll see you soon.